for you on YouTube. Okay. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Talia, even though it says Yaron. Yaron is the co-creator of Points of View. So I'm Talia, and it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm speaking to you today from just north of Tel Aviv, where it was raining, crazy style, hail, lightning, and thunder up until about 30 seconds ago. So we'll see if that happens again, but kind of rare for right now. Usually it's pretty sunny and warm. But what can you do? And we have people on our call today from all over the world, from Singapore, UK, Canada, US, a few in between. So thank you all for joining, and thanks for reading the newsletter. It's really fun that you're interested in more about how to use the coaching game and about points of view. We are today going to talk about the coaching game. Pretty basics, and see where the session takes us. If you have any questions at any time, then you are welcome to just go ahead and unmute yourself or type it in the chat box if you prefer. If you raise your hand, there's a little icon for raising your hand. I might not see that. So don't be shy. Just go ahead and unmute yourself, ask your question, interrupt. That's the best way to go here. And if you're wondering something, or if you have a question or a tip or a suggestion, then most likely somebody else is as well. So don't be shy. Let's see. I'm getting toasty. Hold on, please. Okay. So, all right. Basically, I'm in the Point of View office now. You're welcome to see it. It's really colorful and fun. It would be wonderful to have you all visit sometime. There's our workshop room down there, and it's really neat. And Point of View was created in 2007 based on the whole pay it forward concept. It's a really neat story about Points of View, and I won't tell you now, but after the call, I'm going to be sending you an email that is very juicy and it's full of...
I think you've knocked your mic.
You can hear me?
Yeah, can you just move your mic? You've sort of got a bit quieter.
Is that better?
Speak.
La, la, la.
That's gone quieter. Maybe it's me.
Because, Talia, this is Hope, because now there's an echo with it turned up.
Okay, so that's because Jacqueline's thing was off. Okay, can you hear me now? Hold on, I'm going to put you on mute as well. Hope, let's see. Okay, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay. Thumb. Good. Linda, hi.
Talia, no, it's not loud enough.
Really? I don't know what happened.
And Linda, this is Hope. When you speak, it is breaking up.
Okay, it might be my connection then. Okay, you're really clear.
You sound better.
Okay.
Yeah, now you sound better.
Okay, thank you.
Is it any better now?
It's a little bit better.
I'll just speak really loudly.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, we'll see how it goes. If you don't hear something, then I'll just repeat myself.
That's actually quite good now. Thanks.
Okay, maybe it has to do with the weather here too. Okay, so where were we? So Points of View. Oh, I'm going to send you an email after the call with lots of juicy goodies, little different links and things I refer to. So there will be a nice link there as well about the Points of View story, which is very inspiring. And a bit about Efrat and Yaron. They're really neat as well, co-creators of Points of View. And it's an exciting time at Points of View. Our tools are available in lots of different languages: Norwegian, Polish, Russian, Lithuanian soon, German, Japanese, Hebrew, English, did I say Spanish? All sorts. It's very exciting. And there are companies like NASA and different organizations, large and small, who are using the tools in schools, companies, different government agencies, prison systems, really neat applications of the tools and a lot of creative uses. So if you take anything from the session today, I think hopefully it'll be to be creative and to think outside the box and to just trust the process. So let's see. We're going to basically start. The coaching game and all of our tools offer an opportunity to kind of pause, to take a time out, whether you're working with teams, whether you're working one-on-one with a client as a psychologist or with students. It doesn't really matter. It's really the intention and the whole objective is to offer an opportunity for a timeout, for a pause, to check in with yourself, yourselves as a team, to see where you're at, to expand your point of view and to look at things from a different perspective. The game doesn't really give any answers, but it really offers you the opportunity to look at things from a different perspective, to engage in some neat conversation, to hear different insights, to connect, and to move forward and to really find different results and get unstuck. So we're just going to go bit by bit in the coaching game. I believe that most of you have it, and if you don't, I think the others, it's on their way. It's on the way to you. So in the coaching game we have, put that back in its place, we have 65 cards. We have a layout chart, cloth layout chart. We have focus notes here, and then we also have a book here, which is one of my favorite parts of the coaching game. And we're going to start with the cards, and we'll go through the game bit by bit and discuss and share. So we have in the coaching game 65 cards, all sorts of different cards. This, for example, has a photo and a word, clarity. There's also an upside-down version of difficulty. There are cards that are, before I go into that, I'll talk about looking at a card. If you're working one-on-one, or if you are going to be working with a team on leadership development or doing an icebreaker, and you're going to be using the cards, most likely, then one of the most central and important parts of using the cards in the coaching game is how to look at a photo, and how you as the facilitator encourage the participants or your clients to take a moment and look at the photo that they received, the card. So if we're doing an icebreaker, and the simplest way, even though there are a million ways, simplest way would be for all of the cards to be face down in the middle of the room, and for this group of 20, let's say, or however many, each choose a card randomly, and they're going to introduce themselves through the card. Or they're going to share what's important to me in a team, or what do I bring to a team, or what is working well in my career. Whatever the topic is that you're discussing, what is home to me, whatever the topic is of your session, then everyone will take a moment. Here's a card I just chose randomly. Have it? You're going to take a moment, and you as the facilitator can encourage them to take a look. Look at this card and see what they see. Give them a few moments to observe. Even if you're familiar with the cards, they haven't seen them before, most likely. We'll often encourage participants to cover up the word, the title of the card with their finger, and just look at the photo, because even though the word is such a teeny tiny part of the card, it's most often what we'll focus on. So we'll encourage participants or the client to cover up the word, to look at the photo. Hold on. Welcome, Miriam. I'm going to put you on mute. Good to have you. Okay. To look at the photo. To consider what happened a moment before the photo was taken. What happened a moment after the photo was taken? If you were to zoom out, for example, what would you see? If you were to place yourself in the photo, if at all, where would you put yourself? All of these questions are going to get them thinking, making associations, metaphors, and it's a very reflective tool. And so these kinds of questions are going to be building up on those phototherapy principles that are loaded into this game, and encourage all sorts of creative thoughts. And of course, the answers to these questions are very telling of where the person is at the moment, how they're feeling, whether it's about their team or about their addiction or about their upcoming college admissions process, whatever it is. So once they've looked at the photo, then go ahead and take your finger off of the word. Do you like the topic on this card? Do you feel like it matches the photo? Would you give it a different title? There's all sorts of questions that you can ask as the facilitator, as the therapist, as the leader, workshop facilitator, to encourage those few moments, usually about 3 minutes, of looking at the photo before they begin to introduce themselves. So that's something I'm going to send you as well. If you got the coaching game more recently, then you received it with a card that says how to look at a photo, and then there are those questions, but I'll send you the PDF, no problem. Questions? Okay, if you have any, let me know. As I said before, there are all sorts of different kinds of cards. There are cards like choice and everything is possible and love, opportunities, all of these cards that are often considered good cards. And if you can't see me right now, I'm doing air quotes. So I'm doing air quotes because there really are no good cards or bad cards. Yes, there are cards like fear, neglect, death, guilt, and those cards are often considered bad cards. But again, it's all about your points of view. And as facilitators and as trainers and therapists and whatever work it is that you do, I really, really encourage you to remember that there is no such thing as a good card or a bad card. One little story that reminds me of this whole concept was Yaron, like I said, co-creator of Points of View, when they first created the coaching game and he was just beginning to do workshops with the game. He was in a room with many participants and they were going to all choose a card randomly. There was one elderly woman in the room. And as they were going to choose the cards, he started to get nervous, and all he wanted was for this elderly woman not to pick up the death card. That's all he wanted. And of course she did. She picked up the death card, and he began to sweat and get nervous, and he was ready to say something to help her, to save her, to do something so that she wouldn't be stuck with this big, heavy, bad card. And instead, he took a deep breath, and he decided to trust the process, and he let it go. And this woman shared during the session that it wasn't until she received this card that she really was able to give herself permission to acknowledge the passing of her husband, and that it was a gift, and that she was able to start to grieve. And it was a beautiful story that he still, when they see each other to this day, they still connect over that story. It was a very pivotal moment for him in trusting the process. And it's something that I encourage for you as well. If you're working with high schoolers or with doing team building or with a bunch of executives in a bank, it doesn't matter. I really encourage you to keep all of the cards inside the coaching game all the time, because oftentimes as trainers and workshop facilitators and parents, whoever we're using the game with, we will project our own issues or fears or associations onto some of the cards. And it's unfortunate for others because you never know what they're going to connect with and what that card is going to mean for them. Could be a gift that they're just waiting for. So that's a teeny tiny bit about the good cards and the bad cards. I will say along those lines that as a participant in a session, if somebody, for example, chooses the death card, or they choose a card, it could be love even, and for them it's just too much. It's too confronting. It's whatever it is. They're stuck. There's a wall. No communication. It's just not working. Then there's a couple of things you can do as a facilitator before you start to sweat and get nervous. So one of the things that we encourage is to offer to share with the room at the beginning that there are no rules, there's no wrong or right way to use the coaching game, and during the session as well. It's a game, it's all about your point of view, no right or wrong. And if somebody chooses a card that they don't want to deal with today for whatever reason, then they are more than welcome at any time during the session, during the workshop, during the day to trade their card in and get a different one. However, we will say to them something along the lines of, you're more than welcome to change your card at any time. However, we know from experience that if you do choose to change your card and get a different one, then that first card you got, it's going to it might kind of haunt you and come back later on in the day. It's not really going to leave you. So maybe there's a reason that you chose that card, and here we are in a safe space, and a neat opportunity to work on that issue or that card or the photo and look at it from a different perspective, and maybe it's the perfect card that you chose. But if not, it's okay. You're welcome to trade cards. They can do whatever they'd like, no judgment, no problem. Another thing that we'll encourage participants to do, and it's quite rare, I think it comes together with the safe space that you create, whether it's for team building or whether it's for talking about my career, whatever it is, then another thing you can do is offer them a helper card. If someone's super stuck or they don't get it or whatever the issue is, excuse me, you can offer them to choose another card. I'm going to choose a random card right now. Oops, point of view. And let's say I just don't get it. How am I going to talk about my upcoming year or introduce myself through this card? Stuck, nothing. So, facilitator suggests, choose another card and let's see how the two connect. Chose another card. And I got this one, self-pity. And perhaps the photo or the word, something between the two, will bridge that kind of connection for me, and that helper card will bring up some new insights, something about the colors, something about whatever that's going to make it a little bit more accessible for me to share about whatever the question is that the facilitator is asking. Make sense? Cool. Loving the thumb up. Thank you. Okay. So that's a bit about the good cards and bad cards. There are no good cards or bad cards. It's all about our points of view. Okay. You'll also notice that on the cards, there is a symbol and there's also a number. The symbol refers to the series. There's 5 different series in the coaching game, and these are different series of cards. There's cards that are in the Just Be series, difficulty, opportunities, difficulty, journey, and maybe another one as well. And this can become as integral to your workshop or not as you'd like. Some facilitators I've heard do workshops based just on the series, and that's how they break up a series of workshops based on the topic of the series. Sometimes if you're working with a client one-on-one, for example, or you're doing an activity where they need to choose 3 to 5 cards that reflect their strengths as a leader, or cards that they choose to reflect how they are dealing with their divorce, whatever the topic is, and you see that all of the cards are from the same series, well, that can be kind of telling, and it's something to note. It's a topic to discuss. And inside the book, there's an explanation, a brief explanation of the different series, and you can see where you'd like to take it from there, something to note. We don't often use them so much in the workshops, but they're there, and some people really love them. That's a very quick note about the series. And there's also the page number on the card. And this page number refers to a page in the book, and we're going to get to that shortly. Like I said, one of my favorite parts of the coaching game. The other thing I'd like to say about the cards real quick is that in any session you do, whether it's one-on-one and you're using the class layout chart, or whether you have 200 people in a room, you have a very wonderful choice of using the cards face up or face down. So if you are working with a team and you'd like to, and the team is stuck, and they're kind of always in the same rut, they're doing the same things, the same dysfunction, the same roles are happening over and over again, whatever their issues are, it may be a time that you choose to use the coaching game, good idea, but to use the cards face down. This way, you're going to get some different perspectives, you're going to get different sharing, you're going to get some different insights. And even though you're talking about your team function, dysfunction, your team issues, and upcoming projects, a past project, you're going to hear people sharing from a totally different perspective. If in that situation you were to choose to put the cards face up, then you're going to hear, which is also of value, it depends what your objective is, you would be hearing more of where people are right now. I'm choosing initiative because I feel like I'm always the one who is looking for the light switch to turn it on, to get out of the dark. I want to see, you know, blah, blah, blah. whatever it is. And so it's an interesting choice about whether you'd like to use the cards face up or face down. In almost all of our workshops, we will most often use the cards face down. And don't be scared to do that. There are a lot of advantages and disadvantages. The advantages, as I said, of using the cards face down, where people will choose a card randomly, is that they're going to share from a totally different place. They're going to have different memories triggered, associations, smells, experiences. It's going to really, their sharing is going to come from a different place. One of the disadvantages of using the cards face down is that for some people it can be confronting. It can be really scary. They might already be very skeptical about having cards in the middle of their, executive meeting or whatever it might be. And then it just might be too much and hard for people to connect. Even though it may be that way at the beginning, and even if they choose the cards face down, we know from experience that people will start to connect. You may choose to do a session with the cards face up. And if you do, wonderful. And that's going to make it a bit easier for people to connect. Also with children, if you're working with children and you'd like to have the cards face up, that's fantastic. And one thing I just would note about the cards being face up is that as a facilitator, you should incorporate a bit more time into the process when the cards are face up, because people will spend more time choosing a card that they feel reflects the answer to your question or how they're feeling, and so it is something to note. We do have an activity, for example, called My Photo Album. It's an activity that we do with groups large and small, and it can be on any topic. It could be on my leadership, team building, strengths. It could be about my career. It could be about my feelings about doubt in my life. I'm thinking about the different topics that we've done sessions on based on our planner. Any topic that you're working on or that is an issue for you, what we'll do is we'll break up the group into small groups of 3 to 5. We'll have all the cards spread out on the floor face up, and then we'll tell everyone to choose 2 to 3 to 5 cards, usually about 3 cards face up, that will create a little photo album of their strengths as a leader, or what's important to me in a team, or what do I bring to a team, whatever the topic is. And then we'll give them a few minutes to look at all the cards that are face up. Everybody's walking around. They're spread all over the floor in a big area. They'll choose their cards. We'll break them up into the small groups. And then we'll say, okay, Jacqueline, Hope, Julie, and Linda, you're in a group. Who'd like to go first? Linda, fantastic. Linda's going to put her 3 cards in the middle of the circle. And instead of sharing why she chose these cards, everybody else is going to first give their perspective on why they think Linda chose these cards to reflect her strengths as a leader, or whatever it is. And only once after everybody else shares, then Linda's probably most likely going to say something along the lines of, wow, I had no idea that you saw that in those cards. I had no idea that I chose 5 cards that have animals or that have hands and whatever it is, and thank you for your perspective. Usually it's pretty mind-blowing and really neat. And then Linda's going to then share why she chose those cards. And for team building, fantastic. Really neat way to connect, to get different perspectives, and that's an activity that we will always do face up, for example. So some activities are just better face up or face down. Depends on your objectives. Try them both ways, see how it goes. Questions?
Okay.
Yes.
If people are saying, oh, I wanted that card also. I mean, I know if you have multiple sets, it's not a big deal. But any suggestions?
If it's to the point where they're both, usually one person will say, okay, here you go, you can have it. I haven't really so much experienced that where it's become to the point where that it's an issue. I don't know, it's just a choice, I guess, as a facilitator, whether you say, okay, so you can both have it, you'll both be in the same group, and you'll both incorporate it into your photo album when the time comes. Wonderful. I think that that's what I would do in that situation, just pair them together then, and it'll be even more interesting to hear two totally different perspectives on the same card. And if they're both adamant about it, then maybe there's good reason and it's important to them, and wonderful. If not, there's 65 cards in the game. You could do a workshop with 65 people with just one set of the coaching game. Usually it's not an issue, but it could happen. I'm sure it has. Good question. Thank you, Sandra.
So, Tanya, this is Hope. I don't have the game, as you probably know. And how would you do this with 200 people? Is there a PowerPoint version of the photos if you have such a large group, or the whole thing about selecting? I understand that you can build different sessions, but just very curious how you would do this with 200 people.
Absolutely. Great question. And I'll tell you from experience. We were at the ASTD, now ATD, Training and Development Expo last May in Washington, D.C., and we had a fantastic session for about an hour with around 200, 250 people. And it was in a huge conference expo, and it was crazy loud. We put, and we did something we call the experiential encounter. It's a 90-minute, I'll repeat the question real quick. I was asked by Hope how you can do a session with 200 people and how that works kind of logistically as well. So we had the session, it was an hour long. We did something we call the experiential encounter, which is a 90-minute template of a workshop that we do with anywhere from 20 to, it could be with 2,000 people too. And basically it's a little bit of talking at the beginning, and then it's a bunch of pairs that will do work. Everybody will choose the card randomly, and we'll just need more sets of the game. So we had 200 people, we probably had about 4 sets of the coaching game, the cards, spread out all over the place, face down. And then we also went around and handed them out to people who couldn't get to the front to get the cards. And everyone had a random card. And they all looked at the card for a minute, like I was sharing with you at the beginning, looked at the photo, looked at the word, and then we paired them up. They each had a partner, and they were asked the first question, what is working well in my life? Very simple. And then partner A would share with partner B. And then after partner A would share, then I read a story from the coaching game, and I'll tell you about the stories soon. And then partner B would share with partner A, read a story, and then they would trade cards and go find a new partner. It's really neat because now they have a second-hand card, and they have their own perspectives. And the next question is, what is not working well for me in my life? Very simple questions. I mean, big questions, but bite-sized. And something, side note, is that as trainers and facilitators and therapists, we often have very complex questions, big questions that can be broken down into lots of smaller bites. And really, the most common questions that we work with the coaching game, especially in experiential encounters, are what is working well in my fill in the blank? What is working well in my team? What is working well in my leadership? What is working well in my family, in my recovery, in my motherhood, whatever the topic is. And that gives you a lot to work with, such a simple question. The next one, what is not working well in my life? And then the third question we always do is, what do I invite into my life? What am I ready for? What am I open to? If everything is possible, what am I ready for? In my team building, in my blah, 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 my blah, 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 blah. So you just need more sets of the game to work with the big group, and you may need assistance, some people to assist, and you know, making sure people have a partner and that kind of stuff, but it's all the same. The process is the same, good microphone. We did have a screen up with a PowerPoint. It was very, very basic. All it had on it was the question and photo, just to have something visual, but it's not necessary. We rarely use PowerPoints in our workshops. Good question. Thanks. Any thoughts, questions, ideas, suggestions? Okay. Neat. So that's about the experiential encounter. You said about the face up, face down, photo album. Okay. So Like I said, each card has a number. 34. Okay, before I get to the game, to the book, I'm going to talk about the layout chart real quick. The layout chart that comes with the coaching game is a cloth chart and has 4 different processes that you can do based on 4 different topics. There's past, present, and future, relationships, awakeness, and gain and loss. And these, can be used, these are fantastic for one-on-one. And here you have the opportunity to think about a topic. Let's discuss my financial situation, for example. And I have past, present, and future. Okay, and that's the layout chart I'm going to focus on today in terms of my financial situation. And here you have a template, basically, of 3 different questions. And you can choose to answer the questions with cards face up or face down. And if you're working one-on-one, then this is fantastic because you're really going to see where your client is at. It's going to be very telling, very powerful. I encourage you by yourself after this call, if you have the game, to give yourself a little bit of a pause, a little time out today, choose a topic, and do something on the layout chart if you never have before. And even if you have, with your inspiration that you hopefully get today, give yourself even 10 minutes to sit and do it. Insights are sure to come. So past, present, and future. The first question is, what happened in the past? If I choose a card randomly, for example, and I got this card. It says stuck, and there's that photo. Great. As a facilitator or the therapist or whatever you may be with your client, you can focus on this question and your person can answer it, your client. Wonderful. You can open up the book. They can sit and have a moment to read for themselves the story, the quotes, the questions that have to do with the topic stuck. Or you may choose to do all 3 cards at once, and then only after you've chosen all the cards, talk about each one by one. You may prefer to have them face down and then go one by one. It really is up to you. Your own personal experience, doing it by yourself or with your partner or your children, somebody else, having that experience is going to really give you the confidence to then use it with your clients, to use it with your colleagues, your team, your customers, whoever it is. So I really encourage you to do that work yourself, to know what you prefer and the style that you think will work best. But there's no right or wrong way, and whatever you do, it's going to be very powerful and fantastic, so can't go wrong. Okie dokie. The layout chart is also a really neat way to kind of get you into thinking about those bite-sized questions. As you'll notice on here on the layout chart, the questions are, like I was saying, pretty simple, but very powerful. And with the strength of the cards, they're enough to get your participant or your client talking, thinking, sharing, making associations, coming to insights, crying, who knows what. What happened in the past? What is happening now? What potential is there? Gain and loss. What am I gaining? What price am I paying? And what is the insight? Really neat questions for relationships. What isn't working in the relationship? What do I bring to the relationship? What does the other side bring to the relationship? What in the relationship works? And what has to happen in order to improve the relationship? A really neat process using the cards face up or face down. There's also a little bit of room here on the layout chart for you to use the focus notes. The reason that we have the focus notes, and they're also in the game, ta-da! And they look like this. Hold on. It's like a little pad of paper. And you just rip it out. Like that. And don't be scared to use these up. If you run out, wonderful. I'll send you a new one. No big deal. Don't be worried about using them up because they're fantastic. Then you fold it like this, and your clients, your participants, can write down the issue that they're dealing with today, my financial situation, my leadership strength, my motherhood identity, whatever. Okay? And the reason that it's really neat and important to, first of all, incorporate the power of writing into your process, one is because even though you may be discussing, and the question that you're asking is, what is working well in my life? As soon as somebody gets this stuck card, they're very likely to go to the dark side and start talking about what's not working and how they're feeling stuck and take it to a different direction. And that's okay. It's good to bring back your participant and to focus them not just on how do they connect to this card, but to answer the question through the card. That's the objective. And to keep them focused. When this is sitting in front of their face on their layout chart, like so, with a little pen, you see? Then it's going to also help to keep them focused. On the back of the card, you have a little bit of room here to write the cards that you got for this process. And on the inside, again, to incorporate the power of writing, what is my most significant insight from this process? And upcoming actions in the next 24 hours, week, and month that you can take, that your client, your participant can take. One of the things that we see happen a lot is that participants love the cards that they get during their process, usually because they're the perfect cards. Oh my God, how did it turn out this way? The cards are perfect for this. Well, that's usually how it goes. And they'll often want to take a photo of the cards that they got during the session. So that's wonderful. Encourage them to take a picture of the cards that they got. As facilitators, we will very often take photos of workshops and team building sessions only for the purpose of sending them to the client later, because those photos are a really neat reminder of the process that they encountered and the insights that they had and the special experience they had. So fantastic, wonderful. Send them those photos. They'll be really happy to receive them. That's a bit about the focus notes. Questions? Little question?
Hi,
yes.
Talia?
Please.
Yeah, my question is, if we are using the layout card, layout deck, right, that would mean we would need one game per participant, right?
If you are using it, and you can, some workshop facilitators will choose to have a game per participant, and they'll incorporate the price of the game into their workshop. For example, if they're training other trainers or other coaches who are going to want to learn how to use the tool in their work, then they can each have the game. And if you're interested in, in a bulk purchase or in being a certified trainer and getting lots of games, then I'm happy to help with that as well. But you don't have to. You can also, I'm going to send you in the email a layout for a generic layout chart, basically. It's a Word document. And you can enter in the text and create your own layout chart, print off 20 or 30 or however many you need, and offer those to each participant so that they have a layout chart for themselves.
Okay. And how many participants to share a deck?
65.
Like I think 65. Okay.
65 people can use one set of the coaching game if your activity is like the experiential encounter that I mentioned before, and every participant only needs one card at a time.
Okay.
If they each only need one card and they're going to be trading cards or doing something where, for example, or we'll do like a group puzzle dynamic process, where after they do the experiential encounter, then they'll do the photo album process, and then they'll choose one of their photos, and then that card is going to become, like their card, and then they do a group puzzle. They need to create a puzzle based on all of their cards. It's a really neat team building exercise too, and it's also done within the deck of 65 cards. It depends who you're working with and what your objectives are, but it's really neat to train other coaches and trainers and human resources professionals or educators, whoever, in how to use the tool in very basic ways, just through workshops based on the topics that you all have in common, and then they can then use the tools in their spaces too. Depends.
Okay.
Which reminds me that we have a very fantastic trainer certification program coming up in New York, May 13th until the 17th. And Efrat and Yaron, the co-creators of Points of View, are going to both be there, which is a very special opportunity to learn from both of them. Because if you think I'm energetic and love what I do, then just wait until you meet them. They're incredible. I'll be there as well, and I'd be happy to meet you. but it's a really neat opportunity to learn in depth all about the different ways to use the tools. You don't just learn about it, you play, you experience it yourself. It's a major personal and professional journey, and you leave ready to take your work to an insanely different level. Really, really powerful. So if you have questions, let me know. Thanks for your question, Angie. Any other questions? I love your smiles. It's so fun. Okay, so if you have any other questions, don't be shy. So the book, yay! This is, like I said, one of my favorite parts of the coaching game because, like I said, every card has a number at the bottom of the card. In a workshop, whether it's with 200 people like we did at the expo, or 20, or with a person one-on-one, you can go to the page number of whatever card it is that you're working on. Let's say you're working one-on-one. We'll go slowly, slowly. You're working one-on-one, you're using the layout chart, and your client got a card, whatever card, let's say stuck, and they're connecting to it, they're sharing, or maybe the opposite. They have no idea how this is connected to their financial situation or how it's connected to their strengths or challenges as a leader. And you can hand them the book. In the book, on the page for stuck, you'll see the image here. There's also a story, questions, and quotes, all on the topic of stuck, all offering totally different perspectives about stuck. So it could be a question like, where in my life do I feel stuck? What are the thoughts that trap me and prevent me from moving forward? How can I identify when or where I'm stuck? All sorts of different questions, and those can be the basis for conversation. They can be something that your client is reading and considering themselves, and they may have their own insights on the inside while they're thinking about that. The story for stuck is one of my absolute favorites to read during workshops. We will choose to read stories during workshops for different reasons. For example, if during the 90-minute experiential encounter, we'll read 6 different stories. And the objective and the reason that we do it is because it's kind of a couple different. One, it's to break up the sharing a bit. Sometimes when you're sharing and you are working in pairs and you're talking about your card or what's not working well in my life or even what is working well in my life, it can be intense. It can be a lot of sharing. Even if you're talking, it's a team building activity, it's a lot. It's a lot going on. And it's a little bit of a pause, a little bit of a timeout, a 30-second breather, and we'll choose a story that supports the objective of that question or that session. So if we're talking about what is working well in my life, then we may read the story about maybe authenticity. Or if we're talking about what is not working well in my life, then maybe we'll read the story stuck, or judgment, or should be. And these stories offer the participants either a moment to just be with themselves and totally tune out the story. They're not listening, they're not laughing, that's okay. And for the others, it offers them an opportunity to also take a time out, to have a little bit of comic relief, and then to get back into sharing. And it offers a different perspective. Every story is either a Zen story, Sufi story, African folktale, all sorts of Japanese folktale. Really neat stories that, of course, all have a moral to the story. And it's another way to be inspired and to get a different perspective. And they're really, really neat. I encourage you to read through the book. It's a really neat book. We have a woman who was in here today who said that her 11-year-old took the book, sat down, and read it. And he just read it for 2 days straight and loved it as a book. So there's some really neat stories, and I encourage you to consider how you can incorporate storytelling. And really, the reason I love reading the stories is because I really bring them to life. And it's very engaging and exciting. And if the whole workshop is, for us, is a bit of a performance, and it's very engaging and none of this boring blah, 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 let's talk about team building today kind of thing, then the stories are a part of that, and they bring it to life and engage. Questions on the book, stories and workshops, et cetera, et cetera? Because I'm explaining it so well, or because you have no questions?
Talia, I have a question.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so like, I understand how I can use the point of view for personal reflection. So what if I'm using it in an organizational setting where we are discussing an organizational problem that may not be a personal reflection?
Great. Everything sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So how would you use it?
In exactly every single way that I've said right now. If you, for what? For an icebreaker or for identifying what's the topic? What's an issue, for example?
Okay, so for instance, let's say like in an organization, they are trying to be more innovative, but the people are not, innovation is not happening. So say you get a group of 20 middle managers together, and we want to find out what's like the root cause or how do you solve it. So how do I use this card to facilitate that?
Okay, so they're not being innovative and they're kind of stuck, and is the team, okay, for one hand, I'm going to tell you that I've never worked doing training in those specific situations. So I don't have an example of an activity where it could be like, this is what you should do. On the other hand, think outside of the box for a minute. Think about what is going on with the 20 middle managers. Do they know one another? They know one another?
Briefly.
Okay.
Yeah, they're from different departments, right? So let's say that they're from like all over the organization, or like one from marketing, one from sales, etc., etc.
Okay, I think what I would suggest for you to do is to re-listen to this session later, only thinking about and pretending like everything that I've said has to do about those 20 middle managers who are working on innovation. And anytime I've ever said anything about team building or leadership or whatever other topics I said, listen to it from that perspective, because that's how the tools can be used that way. If you want to think about a question, if you were going to be doing a workshop without the coaching game, think about the question that you would be asking them, and then use and put the cards face down and have them all choose a card and answer that question in the most simplest form. There are all sorts of, what's it called, SWOT, the SWOT assessments, that you can also do, and we've had a certified trainer who created a fantastic one with using the coaching game, and if I can find that, I'd be happy to send that to you. Maybe that could be of assistance. But really think outside the box. All of the work that you're doing anyway, or that you would normally do, you can have them share, but through the perspective of a card. And maybe for them, even just starting with an icebreaker and using a different kind of tool that is more innovative is going to kind of shake things up a little. And it's going to get them sharing in a different way that's going to kind of get the blood flowing in a different way to think about things outside of the box and differently than they're used to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So what I'm taking away is the question I'm going to ask anyway. The card is just another dimension to add on.
Definitely, it's an opportunity for them to look, especially if they're not feeling innovative. It's a way for them to refresh how they're talking about, whether you could be talking about their values or the past projects, and even if you're talking about what worked well and what didn't work well in the past project. Or our innovation, what is working well in what strengths do we have as innovators and creating new things? Where are we, having challenges, and what are we ready for? And when each person shares from a different perspective, from the perspective of, for example, gratitude, I'm choosing random cards, joy, and failure, and each photo that's connected there, that's going to bring up a lot in a really simple way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, thanks.
I think that you should just dare to bring in the coaching game into a session. Start with it just as an icebreaker. Like I said, they're going to share, even if they're just introducing themselves or what's important for them in their workplace. Something very simple, very neutral to begin, and see how it goes from there. And also in Singapore, we have a bunch of different certified trainers, and I'd be happy to connect you with the different trainers who may be offering different workshops and maybe some in that field as well that could be very relevant, and then you could experience them with them as well.
Okay, thank you.
And in August, we're going to have a trainer certification program in Singapore, too, if you're interested in becoming an expert. And then all of your answers will be, questions will be answered.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for asking, Angie. Any other questions?
Yes, Angie, it's Elvira. I have a question regarding a workshop that I'm going to be running at the end of the month. It's called Inspiring Hearts, and the ART is capital. Everything else is lowercase because it's a combination of an art class and group coaching / inspirational talk. So it's something kind of innovative. I was inspired by something that was being done down in California, so I'm kind of doing my own version of it up here in Ontario, and you've got my juices flowing as far as how I can use the cards, because I've had the coaching game for over a year now and I haven't used it. So I'm curious to know what your recommendation would be. Like if it's 20 women that are getting together for these inspiring evenings / art classes, would you use it as maybe excuse me, as an icebreaker to get the women to know each other? Would you use it at the end of the night to say, okay, what are we taking away, and use the cards that way? Where would you use it? I'm just curious.
Well, you technically could use them in every single activity that you do. We have trainers, and if Rats in Your Own will do a 5-day training or workshop or retreat and use the tools throughout in every process. So it could be anywhere. I would start with the icebreaker, because once everybody's connecting and loving it and you're also getting that confidence from using them, then you are going to feel better about integrating them into different spots as you feel comfortable during the experience. So definitely as an icebreaker, it's fantastic. It's totally different, and it's, for you as the facilitator, it's one of the most relaxing and less scary and intimidating ways to use the game, especially if it's one of your first times. And like I said, again, to put the cards face down in the middle, and this is a really neat, what brought me to this workshop, to this retreat? Why am I here? Choose a card, look at it for a few minutes, like I was saying, observe, give them a moment, and then have them share. What brought me to this, retreat, or what is working well for me, or a very simple thing of introducing themselves. I think it's going to unlock a lot and get a lot of, like you said, juices flowing.
Thank you. That's awesome.
And before that, I really, really recommend for you to have it at a family dinner, or have some friends over, or just get some experience with it before. Get the dust off of the game, which is the point of these calls, because it happens. You get the game, you're so excited, you're inspired, and then you're not really sure where to use it, and then it just sits there. But the potential is huge, and you're going to love it so much. And I can't wait to get an email after that experience where you say, wow, Talia, it was so great, blah, blah, blah. Use it and get the experience before, whether it's just with yourself, like I said, with the layout chart, or whether it's with a friend, partner, whoever. See how it goes. Build up your confidence, because then you're more likely to use it, and you're going to love it.
Great.
Especially with a bunch of creative types where everyone's making associations and loving it. It's going to be great.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, so what we're going to do is, basically I'm going to send you an email with a bunch of goodies in it, like I said, and I'll also send you a link, most likely tomorrow, to the recording, which will be up on YouTube for easier viewing. And what I'd like to do is what we'll do most often in workshops as a closure, like you just said, how do I, what is the most significant insight, or what do I take away from this session today? And we'll just go one by one, and you can unmute yourself and think about the beginning of the session where we talked about the cards, the photos, face up, face down, the book, the layout chart, team building ideas, large groups, small groups. What do I take away from this session today? Angie? Or when you're ready, you can just go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay. My takeaway is that whatever I'm already doing, I can add on the points of view cards as an additional perspective for my participants to answer the question.
Neat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really fantastic, wonderful. I'd love to hear how it goes for you.
I will put it in my bag, but now my bag will be more heavy.
That's okay. Once you're using it and it's incredibly powerful, you won't even feel it at all and you'll love it. So please keep me posted. I'd love to hear how that goes.
Okay.
Thanks, Angie. Thank you for your sharing.
Talia, it's Linda. Can you hear me?
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, no, I can't hear you.
I muted myself. Sorry. Yes, I hear you.
Okay. Okay, so I've had the coaching game for about, probably about 3 or 4 years, and I've used it in lots of different situations, probably more personal, a little bit with team building, but every single time there is like so deep, profound insight into just whatever the question is. I just want to, so for me, I want to use it more. I have some more ways I can incorporate it. But I just have a question about people sort of looking in a deeper way and becoming more vulnerable in terms of how they're looking at things, and I guess having some safety in opening up and allowing maybe looking at something in a way that is just really kind of not that familiar to them, or in a deeper way. I guess that, yeah, I just wonder if people see that, because there is an element to that, and being open and allowing yourself just to go there. Most people who have ever done that know that there's just great things on the other side, so go there and do it, you know?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Was there a question in there?
Just about the vulnerability part. Have you had any experience where people just want to hold back, or they just kind of take some time? Like I'm thinking in the in a business meeting where you might use this as an icebreaker, or you know, something where people have not really had experience, like, you know, looking at things in a different way. And some people, but I'm thinking the group experience actually might pull that together, in that some people will be open to doing that, and other people may see that, you know, it's not so scary.
Definitely. I think I'll give you a brief answer and perspective real quick, just in the interest of time, is that the first thing that came to mind, and I was going to say it to all of you as well, one thing that we'll often say in workshops, especially at the end, is to consider what you chose to share today, and consider what you chose to keep to yourself during the session. Both are okay. Don't judge the place where you chose not to share something and you were thinking it or feeling it, but give that feeling and that thought space. Because it's okay that you had it, and it's okay not to share it. So sometimes our clients, our participants, will have insights and thoughts and experiences that they choose not to share, and that's okay too. We don't always know how somebody else is experiencing a process, for better or for worse. So that's one. And the second is that people will, I think that most often people will share within their comfort zone, or they may be surprised and go a bit outside of their comfort zone and share when sometimes our photo memory bank is triggered and suddenly we're sharing things we didn't expect to share, and that's okay too. I'm not sure if I answered your question entirely, but it's about the safe space that you create, and you're welcome to send me an email if you'd like. I'm happy to talk about it as well, or have a Skype call to go further into that. A pleasure. Thanks, Linda. Okay. Yes, who else? What do I take away from this session today?
Hello, Talia. It's Jackie.
Hi, Jackie.
Hi. Well, I take away insight and 2 plans that I've got to when I'm going to use this. And one is I've got a team away day that I've planned for the 18th of May. And the other one is I'm planning on using it in my clinical supervision with my members of staff. Oh, hang on a minute, I've lost you.
I forgot, I put myself on mute while you were speaking so you could hear better. I said neat and wonderful, fantastic, and I would love, love, love to hear how it goes. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for joining us today. Who else? What do I take away from this session today? And we'll wrap it up. Yes,
Hi. First of all, I think I take a bit more clarity. I think it's besides the fact that I'm doing the big trainer program, I'm also participating in every session, every workshop that you ever offered since I joined you. And I recommend to everybody to do that because it's very inspiring and encouraging, and people get so excited and energetic about it that it's contagious. And also there are so many ideas that it's just great, a great opportunity to absorb. Now, as for what you were talking about, sharing or not sharing, I did 2 weeks ago a workshop with complete strangers. I did an open one. It wasn't in a certain frame. And people actually connected so well, and they loved the cards. But the last question that was a bit intimate, it was about flexibility and the subject and where do I choose to be more flexible. People weren't sure how to answer it, and also they were a bit shy. So I chose to tell them about what came up when I did this workshop. And usually sharing is very inspiring. Just as you said, when other people share, then people feel it's about daring. And I'm a psychotherapist, and I discover therapy is not about me, it's about the client. But when I see that they're stuck and I have something that I think that can help them, if I tell them something intimate about me, usually it helps them open up even more and dare more and see that actually there's nothing wrong with sharing intimacy.
Definitely. That definitely will make it feel, and connect the vulnerability as well that Linda was sharing about. When you offer that self-disclosure, that sharing, then it also creates that more comfortable and intimate space as well. Thank you for sharing, Mary.
Sorry, just one last thing. Since I was doing it in Spanish and I didn't have the focus cards, I just did a word template with that. And I told that those who don't feel comfortable to share, they can just write it down so that they will have it even if it's not said out loud. So
exactly, really neat. Fantastic idea. And also writing it down is so powerful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, who else? Yes, Sandra.
I'm going to say, Jackie took my insight, so I'm going to say simplicity, because I've had the game for a while and I'm ready to, really explore, and I'm thinking of this workshop I'm doing, and I'm like, I think I'm thinking too much in my head. I think I need to narrow it down.
Keep it simple.
And then I was kind of glancing back through the book when you were talking, and I'm like, so I got some, like I'm making this much too hard. And
yes, neat. But don't be hard on yourself. It's okay, because it's very common to overthink it and to need instructions and to da-da-da. Keep it simple. Choose a card. There's a parent who shared on one of these calls that her children, if they eat breakfast on time, they'll each choose a card, and that's their card of the day. And she has 2 kids in grade school. That's their card of the day, and when they come home, they share about how did that card come into their day, or sharing about their day through the card. Neat.
That's cool.
Another person who will put the 65 cards in the middle of the room, and she'll say, okay, create a, what did she say? Here's the 65 cards, create a puzzle that reflects the group. And she steps back, and that's what she does for her team building session. And everyone's looking through the cards, and they have a whole process, and okay, we don't have any more time, but okay. Thank you for sharing, Sandra.
Thanks.
Keep it simple. That's what I'm taking away from today. Keep it simple. Okay, is there anybody else who didn't share yet? Julie?
I'm just taking away inspiration and definitely the simplicity, being able to think outside the box and not get stuck by limiting constraints.
Fantastic, wonderful. Thank you for sharing. And Wendy.
Hello, good morning.
Hi.
I'm always really inspired by these, and my mind is always going a mile a minute, and I love these calls, and I did the online training. There's so many things you can do with it, but what I'm taking away today is the pause with the stories and really incorporating them, because although my mind is always going, sometimes people have trouble keeping up with me, and I want participants to get as much as possible out of it. So I'm going to be more intentional about incorporating the stories and using them strategically for their benefit.
Neat. Good, good, good. Wonderful. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing, and thank you all for joining. It's really been a pleasure to spend this now sunny afternoon with you from all corners of the world, and I appreciate your time and for reading our newsletters. And trust the process, be creative, keep it simple, and if you have 10 minutes right now, then sit and do an activity on the layout chart. Think about your upcoming week. Think about, I don't know, something very simple. and do an activity, a process from the layout chart, see how it goes. I saw somebody walk by, Wendy, sit them down, do an activity to process together. You'll be surprised, it'll be fantastic, it'll be unexpected but precise, I'm sure of it. So thank you, thank you, thank you, and have a very wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening. If you have any questions, I'm always available, and if you want to hear about the course, I'm also available, etc., etc. Bye-bye.
Bye, Talia. Bye-bye, everyone.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.